Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I'm here with Ashmatic from Spurs Kings TV to discuss all things being the Europa League winners. It's been a week, but I haven't had the opportunity to talk to him yet, and I'm hoping that the excitement hasn't died down. Ash, how are you, mate?
I'm very well, thank you, man. And a relieved man, more than anything. Relieved from joy for how many years of hearing, we're not quite that team, top 6 team, people questioning why we're here, all the, usual stuff. So to win a major trophy at a Europa Cup, in that we've won it 3 times now, showing that we actually have strong heritage over many other clubs in that top 6, makes me feel proud to wear the shirt. And yeah, I'm overjoyed more than anything for actually just winning a trophy. It means more. And I could see it through the fan base, through how many people turned up to the parades, the players, how they reacted after the win, the manager, and the actual club itself. I mean, what more can I say?
Yeah. And you were doing a watch along for We Are Tottenham TV, weren't you? How did you feel, if you can kind of throw yourself back to that, how did you feel during the game? Did you feel comfortable or confident, or was your kind of experience of being a Spurs fan and not being allowed good things not allowing you to feel that way?
Well, it was a mixture, Barnaby, and I felt like at the start of the game, the nerves started settling in. There was a lot riding on it. I had predictions that we would win. I actually went on ITV News, actually on 6 o'clock news, and I predicted the Spurs win. So I was like, oh, if I get this wrong, I'm going to get it. I really am. There's nowhere to hide. I mean, YouTube is nowhere to hide anyway. But yeah, I think going into it, I was still slightly confident that we get the job over the line in terms of like how many fans traveled, the feeling, the mood before the game, during the game. I felt like it was our day and it was destined to be. I don't know if people believe in all of that kind of woohoo destiny, but I just felt the stars were aligning with Spurs for this very final. And, watching the game, commentating through it kind of helped me to manage my nerves a bit, because you're more focused on what's actually happening in the game. And I said to the boys, yeah, they've got a lot of the ball, but what are they actually doing with it in that first half? And when we had the ball, we looked a bit more front thinking, more forward, progressive, in terms of like, trying to make things happen in that kind of defensive, in the attacking third. And so that was gave me as a fan some hope, some belief that we could do something in this game.
Yeah, totally. And we were discussing before the game on this channel, weren't we? Or at least I think we were both in agreement on this. How I remember it is that we felt like the best way to beat Manchester United was to try and basically dross up the game as much as possible, play a deep block, watch them as they pass it side to side and backwards and get nowhere at a very low, slow tempo. And then try and nick a goal from a set piece or find one goal, and that could be enough. And it happened exactly that way, pretty much.
Yeah, it really did. And so that's why I think as well that kind of steadied my nerves, because I said, if I'm looking at their front line, it's not really scary. They've got 1 or 2 players I do have question marks and, make me think twice, in Bruno and also Ahmad. But outside of that, I wasn't ultra confident in their attack or their defense. So, yeah, you're right, man. We actually sat behind the ball. We stuck to the game plan, and we did what we were doing all throughout this European competition, which was sit back, absorb the pressure, and then hit teams and get the job done in whichever way we needed to.
Yeah, and so, I mean, certainly in the knockout stages anyway. And how much credit do you give to Ange for rolling back on his stubbornness and finding a way to win?
Yeah, no, I'll give him all the credit. It was his team. He picked the team. It was his management. It was his willingness to find a different way to get a result. And I think that's what a lot of the fans have been asking for, because we have been playing one way all season. And the irony is that, the least Ange type of ball got us the result that we needed, and the type of play that people have been, throwing the club, being against the club for, that kind of Conte, Mourinho-esque type of ball is actually what got us the victory in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Ange Wall rather than Ange Ball. So where then do you stand right now? I'll be honest with where I'm at. I released a TikTok video yesterday where I said I feel strongly that Daniel Levy is playing a smart game here, whereas he wants to sack Ange, and he is watching the kind of lay of the land amongst the fan base. Whereas like the day of the game, the day after the game, the day of the parade, all the fans are like, you cannot sack this man, heart overhead. He's got to keep his job, etc., etc. But as time kind of whittles on, and Levy has let Postecoglou go off on holiday, and you kind of suddenly see that other teams are starting to do some transfer business, and we're all a little bit like, what's happening at Tottenham? I can almost feel a little bit, and this is what I was saying in my TikTok video, that actually Levy, if he does want to sack Ange, is kind of cleverly letting it go a week or so, because by then maybe people's heads will start to come back level with their hearts and think, actually, we did lose 22 games. So I'm wondering where you are at in the kind of heart versus head competition at the moment with Ange Postecoglou.
Well, I have to split into two categories, if I'm being honest. You have to have your pros and you have to have your, concerns. So the positives are that, we've got that winning momentum at the moment. There's a squad player togetherness, which you can't ignore. Fans are behind the manager. So I do agree with you. It will be an insane decision to kind of get rid of him in the heat of the adulation of all the fans and the biggest, turn up we've seen in how many years. 250,000 fans turning up at parade was crazy and showed how big a club is. He gave us our first trophy as well in 17 years. That cannot be ignored. And some people say morally, he should be rewarded with that. So we've also got, he's delivered Champions League as well. So he's delivered on two fronts. Yeah. Delivering a trophy and Champions League.
They'll have been his objectives for the season from Daniel Levy.
Correct. And then also there is the consistency argument. Like, we've chopped and changed a lot of the times with managers. And so actually sticking with a manager that could bear a lot of fruit, being stable. A lot of the players as well, they're totally behind the manager. So why would you go and upset the apple cart? Why would you kind of, mess up the mood and the feeling amongst the actual players, the ones playing week in, week out? When the first team are together, you can also say that, that the level of performances is a lot higher and we're able to play the style of play that Ange wants. And so you have to have that as a mitigating factor. And also there is the argument, and this is where the debate happens a lot. Did he prioritize the cup competitions where we kind of done a lot better? Maybe not the FA Cup as much, but in the League Cup, we got to the semi-final. And then in the actual, Europa Cup, Europa League, we actually won it. So on that merit, you could say that's the reason why we played our second string team in the league. And that's why, results actually dipped. So, we want to see front-footed football. But then there's the concerns, right? There's the concerns as well. One more thing I wanted to say as well about the positives is that he is really a good man-to-man manager, exceptional motivator. And you can see that by his speeches. His quotes should be on T-shirts. And I think that's how he pulls at the fans' emotions and their heartstrings. And I think that's why a lot of people swayed from being Ange out to Ange in. And why, like you just said, Levy said, I need to kind of go on holiday, let him go on holiday, let this simmer down. And maybe by then people would have come back down to reality. Because for me, I went to the actual game to Brighton and I saw the 4-1 because I missed the parade. So I wanted to get some of that juice. I wanted to get some of that energy, went to the game. And again, it wasn't our first string team, but there were a few team players like Van der Ven was there. Yeah. We had Basuma did feature at some point. We had a few players that were...
They were hungover, though. They were
hungover. So we can't really look too into it. But I'm just saying, as a fan...
But it gave you... Are you saying it gave you that feeling a little bit where it reminded you?
It woke me up a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Because I came for something, just like all the other fans that are pushing, that flipped over to Ange. They're going into next season. They're hoping for that kind of, carry on. Can that 8-game cup win manifest into a 38 league run with a higher competition in the Champions League with higher level teams. The hope is that we get stronger players in to, you know, level up, and then we can compete on those fronts. I just have a feeling like, and this is where the concerns come in, at that level, do I trust Ange to rotate, first of all? And do I trust him to sacrifice certain teams, certain players that he likes? You know, he might have, you know, player favorites, for example. He might favor a certain player over another player. Will he rotate and rest them? And will that be a detriment to the Champions League run? Or will it be a detriment to the league run? Will we bin off the Champions League to focus on the league? Those are the things I'm like, I've got slight concerns and slight issues.
Yeah.
Game management too. I go back to the game management because there's loads of times when I've seen him, he's had obviously, you know, time to prepare his team, set his team out. It hasn't gone to plan. What's he going to do to change things to stop us from, you know, being swallowed up by another team, by losing that game? Can he rein it in? That's where I have my questions again. And then also, because I know you want to come in, and I still got more concerns.
No, keep going, mate. Keep going.
All right. So all right, if you're going to allow me to have it, 38 points with 38 games. And my biggest thing was every team gets injuries. It's a part of football. So we, in my opinion, the whole notion that, you know, the injuries are the reason why we are where we are, I would accept that if we were in 12th place, 11th place or 10th place. 12th is even low. I even said 10th or 11th. I remember in the middle of the season, and I was getting pelters. How could you say that your standards are low? But I thought the closer you are to the European places, the more chance you have of leveling up this next season when you do bolster that squad. Am I making sense?
Yeah. So, I also just wanted to add in, when you're talking about injuries, that I've still, again, I've said it a lot, but he has to take some responsibility for the injuries as well, because it's not just this season. It's not just this season and last season. It's also his entire career, where it's written in all these books, these biographies that people write. Oh yeah, his teams do get muscle injuries because of the intensity of his training and how he insists that they don't take any breathers on the pitch in matches and stuff. I mean, I have to say, and I'll let you carry on with your things, but I've been saying a bit, and I wanted to put it to you as well, whether you think this should happen or may have happened. I think he basically has to repitch for his own job to Daniel Levy and say, this is why I think I should keep my job. And one of the things has to be, I will do it in a less intense way so that we can keep Mickey van der Ven on the pitch and Christian Romero on the pitch. Because for me, Mickey van der Ven made about 35% difference to our Europa League run. That's how much better we were with him and Romero. But anyway, sorry, I'll let you go back into it.
No, look, I totally agree. And I think it's who we are, and people asking him to adapt. That's where the concerns are in terms of the injury, because when we're playing out from the back, I think we're like either number one or we're in the top four in terms of losing the ball when we're trying to build out from the back in that central area. So for me, that is a massive concern. It's because he's refusing to change that part of the game, and that's where games are won or lost. So it would make more sense tactically if you don't have, you know, your ideal players that can play out from the back, that can do those things that you want to do. We can't have a goalie that plays short, and we don't have the same level of players as a Man City, and Man City don't play as short as we do. And Pep recognized that he had to be more like the Brightons and the Newcastles. That's what he said in an interview,
right?
Meaning that you have to go a little bit longer and a bit direct to evade the press, because some teams have figured out what you're going to do before the game. So I don't like to use the word tactics. I would like to use the word strategic planning. What has the manager, what has the coach said to the coaches, strategic planning wise? This is what I want us to do to negate some of these issues that keep happening week after week, because a lot of the fans were saying we are conceding the same type of goals. So that's one issue. Also, when we are in possession and we are playing that high line, and I did concede that the high line, we didn't have it as aggressive as last season. I think we have the 6th highest line. So lots of teams play with high lines. It's nothing wrong. And a lot of people have a problem with the inversions as well of the fullbacks. I'm not so mad at it. But my thing with the fullbacks is the players, they play so high up. So when the fullback is so high up, that's what leaves the space in. So you could have a fullback overlapping, but if they're still high up, the space is still in behind. And then the setup is having two centre backs with one defensive midfielder to cover those zones, to cover that much ground. That for me, strategically, is a flaw in the system, which has lived there before Tottenham and before Celtic, and as long as Japan. So when he was in Japan under Yokohama, he had the same issues, and that's the risk to reward strategy. That is the Ange ball system, the way. And so when I looked at the other teams, I remember when Liverpool dropped into 5th and they had the injuries, and people were like, oh, they had injuries, and that's where they dropped off. But Klopp had to change it. And when he inverted Trent, he didn't invert him attackingly, like to say, I'm going to put you higher up the pitch. He inverted him defensively. And the reason why is because the hole was so big. I remember it like the other day. I remember watching Southampton run through their middle. And that was alarming. I said, oh my days, I didn't realize Liverpool was so open, because I was so focused on their attacking play. Now, fast forward, I'm looking at Spurs. I'm seeing the same type of issues, and they're not being addressed. So if you have one top 6 a week, and we know Cardoso has been linked with Atletico Madrid, apparently.
Read that today.
He's agreeing.
Doesn't that mean that Real Betis will have to pay us some money? I think
we're going to get some money out of it, which is a plus. It's a bonus.
It'd be like 5 mil or something, I guess.
Yeah, which is positive. But I'm saying even Cardoso, if we was to get him, and that's the 6 we needed, in that system where he plays for Pellegrini at Real Betis, he plays in a double pivot. And normally it's Lo Celso or another midfielder alongside him, which gives you more protection. So one can go, one can stay. What I saw with our team when we played the single pivot, double pivot we played in Europe, but in the Premier League, we played the single pivot. What would happen at times is we would defend as a block, and we would go to the ball side. So whatever the side the ball was on, our team would push up, and in numbers, we would try to crowd out that area. As soon as that press was evaded, your 6 essentially is pulled across to that ball side, and that means the other side's open. So if it's on the right, you've got Bentancur swinging over to the right. No one centrally, and no one on the left.
An easy diag or an easy pass into the middle.
Right then. So that was my biggest concern. Will Ange now tactically tweak that? But then that goes against, that's more pragmatic. That's going against his style and his front-footed way, which fans wanted to see. So they still exist.
But there's a mix to be found. There's a compromise to be found, which also, sorry to interrupt, but also in those knockout games, how much better players did Bentancur and Basuma look because we were playing in a slightly more pragmatic way? Like, and I would say away at Bodo Glimt as an example, right? Yeah, we had a 1-goal lead to protect. Everyone was scared. We played in a more pragmatic way, but as a result, as we kind of earned the right to play our football, we then made the better chances. And I think it's for me. Sorry, just to finish up. I think for me, imagining this meeting where Ange is repitching for his own job, I think he has to try and find a way to say, I'm going to find a way to be a little more pragmatic, earn the right in Premier League games to then hopefully get the first goal and then the second goal, and then other teams will leave gaps and we can play our football there. That's where the change is. I personally just think the Premier League is too elite in terms of, yes, in every other league he's played in, maybe you can afford to give up so many chances, but in the Premier League you can't, because they finish them off and they can play that cross to the back post with far better skill than they can in Japan or Australia or even in the Scottish Premier League. And I think he has to adapt or he will die. And it's up to him, I think, at this point, whether he chooses to die now by saying to Daniel Levy, I just think we need better players to play my system, or 10 games into the new season, if we keep him and he doesn't adapt.
Yeah, so I agree, man. And I think the alarming thing is the amount of goals we conceded, because we scored 64, which is brilliant, but we conceded 65, which is worrying. And that comes back to my concerns. And that is the actual defensive shape, where we are being exposed either down the flanks, through centrally. And when you lose the ball, all your players have to get back quickly inside and set into that shape. The thing is, Barnaby, in those European games, where we played those oppositions which aren't quite the Premier League level or Champions League level, we took the lead first, and then we were
And gave
pragmatic.
it up.
Yeah, do you understand? Then we parked the bus, so to speak. So I'm looking at it. If we use that strategy into the next season and we play Champions League football as well with better players, is there still going to be cracks in the system? And so that's why I'm looking at this trophy. Did the trophy cover up a crack? Do you know what I mean? Did it paper over the cracks? That's how I'm looking at it. I love
it. Ash, it did. It's as simple as that. I don't mind saying that. It doesn't mean I necessarily want him to definitely get sacked. But yes, it covered. I mean, because it's as simple as if he hadn't won that game, then he would be sacked by now. He would have gone now. He'd be gone.
Yeah. So that these are the questions I ask myself. Now we people are now saying, you know, is it a coach's issue? You know, maybe his overarching philosophy is correct. But then maybe if he had better coaches or a more defensive,
I think that's bollocks. I have to say, I think that's
I agree.
People have been going in on Ryan Mason for so long, and I don't get it. It's almost they go in on him because he's been there. Like he's been there. Like it's not his fault that he's been given these jobs. He's learning. That's it. I don't have a problem with that at all.
It's a thing where now Mason's going, and if Ange was to stay, there'll be no excuse. But if we was to get a coach in, and I still not sure if it would work. If we got someone like, I don't know, Perplenders, who's the ex-Klopp coach, you know, he used to do, he went off to manage himself, didn't quite work out, so he's out of a job. But I was just wondering if he could teach a better press, because he was the counter pressing and defensive coach for Klopp that plays like a similar, you know, heavy metal gun-ho style. Do you know what I mean? But the thing is, in my opinion, football has cycles, and it's evolved away from that style where you have the Gurgen press and you kind of, you know, suffocate teams and you win that way. Now teams are now going back to the traditional, you know, over the top.
You are seeing a lot more direct ball, a
lot more directness. Do you know what I mean? And so, can Ange change with the times? Does he recognize that as well? Does the club think he's the man to take us forward and spend a lot of money, because it would be like 300 million? Would they trust him?
That's what it would need. I don't know if we're going to spend 300 mil. We might spend 150.
But we probably spend maybe 150, 200 million. Regardless of the figure, would the club trust him with that money to spend? And this is the reason why, like going back to what you said, maybe Levy said, let me give myself a week, because maybe he's emotional.
I think he is. I think he's going to find it difficult too. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to end by asking you 1.5 questions, right? The question is, who will be in charge? Who will be the manager of Tottenham for the European Super Cup final? A phrase I probably never thought I'd say, us being in that. And if it is not Ange Postecoglou, who do you think it will be?
I don't think Levy knows. So me as a fan, how would I know? Do you know what I mean? There's different, because the reason why I'm reading into the reports, I looked at Romero and people would say if the players are backing him, he should stay. And then I read a report today that, you know, at one point he said something like Romero said his family is suffering.
Yeah, because it's so cold.
Because it's so cold. And I'm like, well, we're in summer right now.
But also, the numbers I'm hearing that Atletico Madrid want to pay for him is completely ridiculous. So if they pay the money, if they go up to like 80 million euros, then I think he'll go. But they're not getting him for 40 mil.
But this is it. This is what the point I was making. I'm not saying Romero's going to leave. The point I'm making is more focusing on what he's saying in terms of his comments. He's saying about his family, you know, like, you know, it's cold here. Like, sounds like he wants to exit. Do you know what I mean? But then I read another comment like what you're just saying about the whole, you know, he won't leave for nothing less than 70 million, and or close to 80 million he'll probably go for. And he's like, oh, I got, you know, fight for the club. I want to be here.
His Instagram post the other day said, but this is the way we have to do it, basically. You know, staying together. Yeah.
So it's that's why I'm like, I don't know where we're going. I'm trying to look for clues, and I can't find many.
Okay, I'm gonna rephrase my question, because granted it is hard to know. So I'm gonna say this: How would you feel? Would you feel? If we go to the European Super Cup final under the stewardship of Thomas Frank?
I don't think it would happen, but
Why? I mean, he's on the list, and I think a lot of people are dropping off the list quite quickly.
Yeah, they are. I know. I thought I read something that he was he wanted to stick around, but yeah, you never know what. But I reckon Thomas Frank's a funny one. I'm not mad at his tactics. He's very laid back. He's a people's person.
I just don't know if he's going to grab. I don't think he's going to grab the excitement of the fans or the players.
He won't grab the excitement of the fans. He won't. I think this is where it's a hard one. Where are we actually at? Finishing 17th and the season before finishing 5th are like worlds apart.
Yeah.
And as a fan, our expectation is we are top 4. We're a top 4 club, minimum top 6.
Yeah.
But do we have to say reality is we need to get into that top 8, back into the top 8, and then have the conversation the following season about top 4? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if that's the question, then Thomas Frank does probably he's probably the level where we're at the moment.
I just think
ugly. It's ugly to say it, but
it is. The thing that I can't get over is I think there's a chance that based on the momentum of what's happened, we could have another start like we did last season. In which case, nobody would be talking about Ange at that point. So I think Levy should basically almost what I think should happen here. Actually, this is really what I think should happen. Levy, for the first time in his tenureship as Spurs chairman this season, went against his natural instinct by not sacking Ange on numerous occasions. And the reason he did that is because he's had so much abuse before for sacking managers too early. Right? The Mourinho thing, the allowing Conte to self-combust or whatever. Right? Even some ridiculous people saying, oh, you sacked Nuno too early. Look, it's been shown by Nottingham how he's done it for us. And that's bollocks, by the way, as well. So now Ange is in this position. Now Levy's in this position again, where his whole instinct, I think, is to sack him. But maybe he should be educated. He should educate himself based on the success he has had by going against his instinct in the last few months, and one more time go against his instinct. Let Ange stay on, and see if Ange can evolve more and change it, and we can have another good start. And sure, if he stays and he were to lose the first 2 games of the season, I think he would be out then. He will be basically under the pressure that he's been under in those knockout games going forward anyway. And he's kind of thrived on that pressure. So I think everyone's saying, oh, it'll be like October or November. I actually think if he lost 2 games in a row, Levy would have every right to go, sorry, mate, like it's done. And then you're still 36 games to go.
Have you seen our preseason run up?
Well, we're in Asia, aren't we? We're in South Korea, aren't we?
Do you? Is there a part of you that says like, because we have to play
given the friendly games, and if we get bad results in the friendly games, you're out?
No, I'm saying like that the mood changes because from what I've read, it's Newcastle we're playing right in one of the friendlies. It's Arsenal,
South Korea,
Arsenal. It's Bayern Munich, right? And then we go into whoever wins out.
So we could get spanked by all of them, basically.
That's what I'm saying. So then you're going into the season now, and remember it's a competitive game. That Super Cup game.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Are we going to be slightly tired playing the first game of the season, lose that, and then like what you said, and then Levy's just trying to weigh up. Do I? Because let's face it, if he is given, if it's not sacked, then he's going to get to have the window. He's going to be able to pick.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
And that means a manager's going to miss out on that pre-season.
That is what the sporting director is supposed to be there for, to make sure the strategy continues.
So I'm wondering if Vinay and Paratici had the conversation with Levy before they stepped in that role. We want footballing, autonomy. We want to have absolute power in who comes in and who goes in terms of managerial positions, player-wise. You're trusting us. So if Levy's really stepping back, because that was the whole debate before.
Sure.
Did they say, we don't want this manager, we want to move in a different direction? Because at the time when they were recruited, when they were taken up for the job roles, I know they'll be announced in July, but did they look at the results in the league and say, this is unacceptable, we need to move in a different direction, we've got our targets, and we think these managers can take us to the next level? Because remember, their jobs are on the line as well.
That's true, and I was listening to the Tottenham Way podcast today, and it might have been Dan Kilpatrick, one of those journos, said that they'd heard a little whisper that Levy might be waiting till after the Champions League final in the hope of Paratici maybe trying to persuade Simone Inzaghi to come across. Now, look, I can't pretend that I know a great deal about Simone Inzaghi, other than he's obviously done a great job at Inter, but I do fear for another Italian passionate manager with this group of players, but hopefully enough of those players have left that it wouldn't be the same. Obviously, nobody else is Antonio Conte when it comes to winding up players and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I personally think one of the reasons Romero loves Ange so much is because Ange lets him fuck off all the time. It's like Ange just let him do whatever the fuck he wants.
You know what? With Simone Inzaghi, I think it's an interesting one because he is a manager. He allows that kind of freedom, but he does have a set structure. But if fans hate inverted fullbacks, he makes the centre backs invert in a different way, and he makes the midfielders drop into defense. Like, his system's completely out of this world. So that would be a real change. But I think him coming into the club.
Why would he come to Spurs though? Why would he come to Spurs?
I don't know.
He must have Paratici. If there's any truth in that, it must have been Paratici's giving him a little brown envelope or had a word with him or something. I don't really know why he would, unless he's got some passion to come and manage in the Premier League. And in that instance, at Spurs, there are no other real big jobs going right now. So maybe.
Yeah, no. What it is, I think if he was to come, some miracle, somehow, some way, I honestly think that's the type of manager that could possibly unite the fans. In terms, if we're going to lose Ange, it needs to be to someone that has that level. Exactly, exactly. And that's where I sit with it. And I think that goes back to that Thomas Frank question that you put up. Yeah. There, I think the fans will be underwhelmed, and he'll be starting on the back burner. However, I do know that
like Nuno, that's exactly what happened to Nuno.
Yeah. Him and Langer are quite close. They talk outside of football, so I do understand the links and the possibilities of it. But again, like we said, Paratici, he does have the Italian ties, and maybe that's where he sees us, a top 4 club, pushing on. We're nowhere near where we need to be, and we saw how quickly, like you just said with Nuno, how he turned them around from being at the bottom and shot them up into 7th. Even though I know they were aspiring to be, maybe in the Champions League.
That's all. I was just going to say that's also what Emery did at Villa. And also don't forget, Leicester came 17th the year before they won the league. So it can change around pretty quickly.
Exactly.
But again, I feel like it is kind of classic Tottenham right now that we're in the middle ground. Nobody knows exactly what's going on. There's no decisions being made. And it feels, again, like this is a very Enoch and Daniel Levy place to be in, where we don't quite have a clue what is happening.
I don't think they've quite got they had a plan, I feel like. I think the plan was that no matter what the result was, they were going to get rid of him. And then
the outpouring of love that has shook them up, basically.
This is it. And I think that's where he's gone away, and he's kind of left it to kind of, like you said before, he's gone away to A, think himself, and B, let people calm down, let the fans calm down, and kind of gauge it, and then see if he can get away with, sacking the manager.
Yeah. Listen, Ash, thanks so much for coming on the show. I've really enjoyed that chat. Tell the audience where they can find you if they haven't already.
Yes. Again, me and Marlon are on Spurs Kings TV. So we're still trying to chase that 4K mark. So yeah, if you guys can subscribe, we'll be ever so grateful. But again, thanks for having me on, Barnaby.
No problem, mate. Get over to Spurs Kings TV. And Ash, tell Marlon he's welcome on the channel anytime as well. I'm not singling him out by any means.
Yeah, of course.
Whatsoever. And guys at home, thank you so much for watching. Please do press like if you haven't already, and do subscribe to the channel if you're not already, for daily Tottenham and transfer content over the course of the summer. And hopefully in the next few days, we will at least hear what is going to happen with the next either Ange as manager or the next manager of the club. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Enjoy. Come on, you Spurs.